Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I had to fix the camera. As I was saying, sometimes I was unable to give them the doses as consistently as I wanted to, but more often than not, I did a really good job of being consistent with that medication. And I found, especially, well, with both of them at different times, I found that if I wasn't consistent, that their breathing would get a little bit more labored. Now, I can't confirm 100% that the breathing issues that the symptoms that they would show would be related to me not being consistent with the medicine or not giving, both doses every day. And also maybe they needed a higher dose, or the measurement needed to be adjusted, the prescription needed to be adjusted. But I always found that when I stayed consistent or got back to being consistent, the symptoms would go away. Over the last few weeks, Billy has had some labored breathing, and then it went away, and then it came back, and then it went away again. And even to the point where last night, he's running around his cage and he's chewing on the grids in the middle of the night, harassing his neighbors. And if you saw my last video, Mike and Billy were together, and it's partially because Dice has been harassing Mike, and also because Billy has had some breathing issues, and I thought that they would keep each other company, but Billy was feeling so good that he was just harassing Mike and going into the same house as Mike and not leaving him alone. And anyway, about a week or so ago, a week or so ago, Nails, his breathing started to become more labored. And in the past, I just made sure that I gave him consistent doses of his heart meds. And it's also possible that he was given, that his prescription was for a conservative amount. And when it comes to something like Lasix, you can give more than his prescription if there's acute symptoms of fluid buildup in the lungs, which can cause difficulty breathing. So over the last week, I've been extremely consistent with giving them their medicine, hoping that the breathing issue would subside and that he would start to feel better again. But on Wednesday, I noticed that his labored breathing was becoming really pronounced. And so I reached out to the rescue group, I reached out to Saskia, and I reached out to my vet. And, I have a lot of experience at this. And when guinea pigs have heart disease, the medicine usually does a really good job of keeping it under control. I've had guinea pigs that lived for many, many years, 4 years or more, on consistent heart meds, to the point where their x-rays showed normal heart function and they lived a full normal life. So when being consistent and increasing the dose wasn't working, I asked the vet if antibiotics would be a good idea for possible pneumonia or some kind of a respiratory infection, which, if you watched my heart disease video, they're common that they go together. So Billy, in addition to his heart issues, and being 6 years old, the last year he developed an abscess in his jaw, which essentially is just, there's an infection in the root of his jaw, or some kind of a lump in the root of one of his teeth in his jaw. Now, whether or not the bump that still exists is just a permanent thing, or if there's still active infection, the vet prescribed azithromycin, which is an antibiotic. I'm sitting in the parking lot of the vet right now, actually, the Exotic Animal Vet Center in Pasadena. So the vet got back to me and said I could start him on a course of antibiotics. And so Wednesday night, he had his first antibiotics. And Wednesday, he was eating lettuce, and I gave him also over 20 cc's of critical care through a 1 milliliter syringe. And aside from his heavy breathing, so it was like, and his chest was moving sharply, that's pretty much what I was doing. But on Thursday and all Wednesday night, well, Wednesday afternoon, all through until late at night, he sat with me on a fleece and a heating pad, and my room gets pretty cold right now in the winter. But he sat under the electric blanket, and at just, the guinea pig room is at a perfect 75 degrees. So at a certain point, I just couldn't keep him as warm enough, or the blanket was just kind of draping over him, and I constantly had to turn it up and then turn it down, and I just figured he would be okay to go spend the night back in his cage. And Thursday morning, he was fine. But before I put him back in his cage on Wednesday night, what I'm trying to say is that the whole day he didn't poop at all. He peed a few times on the fleece, but he didn't poop at all from Wednesday afternoon until Wednesday night, when I put him back late, well after midnight. And Thursday, I took him out, and he didn't want to eat anything. I was able to give him about 5 or so cc's of critical care and some electrolyte mix, and then also some ground up carrot and banana in water. a total of maybe 10 cc's or less, but he just didn't want it, and he wasn't interested in lettuce, and he still hadn't pooped, at least during the time that I was with him. And I could tell that he was going fast on Thursday night. He was, every time he would breathe, he would whimper a little for maybe 15 minutes or so, and then he'd quiet down, and then a few hours later, the same thing. And if I tried to feed him, he was just letting me know that he was just really uncomfortable. But I tried to give him fluids, and I tried to give him a minimum amount of critical care that would give him some energy. I had him in a fleece tunnel that had like plastic rings inside it that would support it, and I was draping the electric blanket over top of that and heating the tunnel, so he had space around him and the blanket wasn't directly touching him, but I was able to keep it at a nice, cozy, comfortable temperature. And I thought he was going to go, and I put him on my chest, and actually I played some shamanic drumming that I found on YouTube, and I sort of myself fell asleep or went off into a trance, and it ended after an hour. And I woke up and looked at him, and he was still here, and he had the light in his eyes. And so I thought maybe he could hold on. And we just sort of went back and forth from him sitting on my chest to sitting in the tunnel on a pillow and just trying to keep him comfortable. And every once in a while he would like crawl out of the tunnel. And then he would get bad, and his voice, he was struggling to breathe, and then it would go away. And I kept telling him, just needs to hang on and let the antibiotics work. But then he started to get really weak. But then he jumped out of the tunnel, and he wanted to walk around, so I put him back in his cage for a minute. But then I can tell he was struggling to move, even though he was trying to move. And when I picked him up, he was just kind of flopping. And I picked him up, and I laid down with him. And I held him on my chest. And I put the electric blanket over us. And he stopped breathing. I tried to help him breathe. And I tried doing gentle heart palpitations or heart, tapping on his chest, but so I just held him. I fell asleep, holding him under the blanket, under the electric blanket, keeping him warm. Even though I'm pretty sure I could feel the moment when he left. His eyes stayed bright for hours. And even though he was under the blanket, he didn't lose his body heat. So I held him, and I kept him close to me until his arm was stiff. I've never done, they call it a necropsy. I've never done one for my piggies because it's usually expensive and it doesn't often tell you any more than you already know. But in this case, I couldn't tell if his worsening condition was the progression of heart disease or if there was some kind of pneumonia or respiratory illness. And I'm willing to take the chance that I might be able to find out. So that's why I'm here, to see if I can find out. Generally, when a piggy is having heart-related breathing issues, there's either like a gurgling, like there's fluid in the lungs, or there's a hooting. You know, if you watch my heart disease video, then I describe some of the symptoms based on the information sheet that's published through the Exotic Animal Vet Center. And so it's either you hear like a crinkling liquid sound, and that's the Lasix can take care of that and make it easier to breathe and clears the fluid out of the lungs, or you hear a hooting, and that's caused by an enlarged heart pushing on the lungs and a weak heart, and it doesn't feel good. But this was different. This was like a sharp breathing. It wasn't loud and it wasn't liquidy, but it was which gradually, it started off just I could see him breathing. You can usually barely see your piggies breathing, but if you can really see their chests heaving, then that is a sign of something. And when I started to see that a week ago, I thought maybe I should increase the meds, because I've had guinea pigs. Tito was on heart medicine, and he was taking basically twice the daily dose of what these boys are getting, and he was doing just fine. So I thought I would increase the dose. He has a checkup coming up. They both, Billy and Nails, have a checkup coming up. It's already scheduled. But at a certain point, I thought it's got to be something else. Like I said, consistent medication had made any of the heart condition symptoms go away, but in this case it wasn't. So I don't have any answers, and I'm going to put this video out basically right now. So I hope to find the answers. That's why I'm here. I know how hard this is. I hate finding out about piggies that I love and follow on the internet, or piggies from the rescue, or that, you know, I've fostered or adopted out from the rescue. I hate finding out when they pass, even when they've lived a long life, but I feel like I did the best I could with Nails, but we did not have enough time together. That's for sure. If I keep talking, I'll end up talking in a circle, and I don't have much more to say. And I hope you guys will forgive me if I don't reply in the comments. Other than a heart to say thank you for thinking of him. I said this in my grief and loss video, that when you lose a piggy, chances are you have other piggies that still need your love and need your care, and that's certainly true in my case. And when you go through an illness, a lot of things fall by the wayside. My place is a mess. And, you know, I've been taking care of Billy with his recent breathing issues, and taking care of Ron, who had a bumblefoot flare-up. Thankfully, his wrap is off and his foot is healed. It's still a little swollen, and I'm just finishing his course of antibiotics. But, you know, that's something that if I don't give it constant attention could come back. And anyway, sorry for the long video. It's not a fun video. And then I don't blame you if you just watch 2 minutes of it. And I do appreciate the comments, though. I appreciate you guys. You know, it's heartbreaking to think that I have to tell thousands of people that a guinea pig they've never met has died. But I try to be open and honest in this channel for the benefit of people out there who are caring for their piggies. And I try to document what I'm going through in case it might help someone else. And that's another reason why I'm doing the necropsy, is because it's amazing how grateful I could see with Nails. I could like tickle his belly, and I could bother him. I could, you know, tickle his chin, or places that he didn't like, and he might like reach down and nip at me, but I could still tell that he was like, "Dad, I don't want to have to bite you, but I will." But I could always see that there was this sense of gratitude from him. Like he remembered, like he knew. Like, I don't know where you came from, but before you got here, I was suffering. And since you got here, it's been better. That's all I ever wanted for him. That's all I ever wanted for all of my piggies. That's all I want for your piggies. So let's end this video. I'm still 3 hours away, and I gotta wait for the results, but, you know, why don't you go give your piggy some kisses and some scratches and some treats for me for nails. All right, guys. Thanks for being here with me. It means a lot.